Good morning. Come with me and we'll clean a couple of enclosures and check out some critters. These are our marks today. We've got these lovely enclosures that were made by Cody of DeGan's Woodworking. This is Amber's husband. He's a cabinet maker and he makes really nice stuff. And then inside of them we have some bioactive setups with some snakes. So let's say hi to them. Well, I say snakes, but right out the front gate I've made a liar of myself. This right here has a northern blue-tongued skink in it. His name is Sunny Side Up. His favorite food is eggs, which is pretty self-explanatory for the name there. So what we've got is a fully bioactive enclosure in here. We've had these plants growing in for quite some time. And Mr. Sunnyside, I think I see him sleeping. There's his back inside of his hide there. So there's a couple things we got to do to this. We got to check on our plants. Sunnyside here does like to knock some of his plants over, so I've kind of got some wood and some rocks in place to sort of hold things up, and then he takes issue with that and knocks them all down again. So we're just going to straighten things up a little bit. Now, for the most part, when Mr. Sunnyside takes a dump, there's all sorts of little buggers in here. Little beetles, isopods, springtails, and the such that are going to break that down and turn that into food for our plants. That said, sometimes, this is a urate right here, he'll have a go on the rocks themselves, and the isopods don't really tend to go for that. So what we're going to do is take a toothbrush, not mine, I'm going to use someone else's and not tell them, and I'm going to give that a little clean down with some trifectant cleaner. And then at the end we'll give these surfaces just a brief misting that's going to rinse the remnants of that into the substrate where the isopods will make good use of it. But we got to start with this water bowl. It doesn't look too dirty, but if I run my finger through it, there's a bit of a kind of a sliminess to it. I don't really have any friction, so I'm going to have to clean that up. So let's take that out, and we'll take this water. We'll just water the bases of a couple of our plants here. They don't take much. The substrate looks dry on the surface, but it's nice underneath. So I'm going to go clean this bowl and we'll be right back. And there we go. Our bowl is nice and cleaned up. This is a little insert bowl, so it's just going to slap down right in place. I like to use these low profile bowls for blue-tongued skinks because they have wee little legs, and those legs aren't great for climbing big tall water dishes. And then I'm just going to fill it up with some nice dechlorinated water. There's a couple ways you can go about dechlorinating your water. You can use a water dechlorinator, which will bind to the chlorine in the water and then just kind of sink it to the bottom, making the water nice and safe. Or what we've done in this case is we just fill some milk jugs with water and we leave the cap off, and overnight most of the chlorine is going to sort of evaporate out of that water. So we've got some fresh water in there for our little fella. Now we've still got to deal with a bit of urate here, so let's go find a toothbrush. We're back, and you know, it's frustrating. Sometimes you just ask people, hey, can I use your toothbrush? And then they have all these follow-up questions like, for what? And it's not going to come back with animal feces on it, is it? And like, do you really need to know? Sometimes what you don't know can't hurt you. So regardless, what that leads to is I couldn't get anyone's toothbrush, so I'm just going to use this dish brush instead, which might actually be a better tool for the job, but it's a little hard to reach in there. Let's get that broken loose. There we go. So you don't want to leave every cleaner on the surface like this. We use something called trifectant or Virkon. It is specifically an animal, reptile veterinarian type cleaner that is animal safe. So if there's a bit of residue in there, it ain't gonna hurt nobody. But that's all. Oh, hey, how you doing, bud? He's come to investigate what we're doing, see if we have any eggs. We don't. So we've got that scrubbed down a little bit. Our glass is looking pretty clean. If this glass was dirty, I'd take some more of that cleaner, wipe it down with some paper towel, but that looks like that's going to be redundant. So I'm going to grab a mister. We'll give this a quick spray down. We'll carry on to our next enclosure. Alrighty, we've got our mister here with more dechlorinated water. We'll just give that a little rinse. There's a smidgen left behind, but that won't be too much for the isopods to handle. And I don't want things to get too humid in here. This is, after all, a wooden enclosure with a drier species in it, but I want to make sure these plants are doing okay. So I'm just going to do a little bit like that. Pick my cleaner bottle down. Oh yeah, you know, another important thing is closing the enclosure. It's kind of in the name. They're generally enclosed. And so there we go. We're done with the blue tongue skink. Let's move on down to one of my favorite animals we have at the shop here. And these are Malagasy giant hog noses. If you've been following the channel, you know what these are. These are super cool. They're called hog noses. They're not at all related to like our classic plains hog nose. And they're hiding. Hey darling, let's see if I can flip this around, get a better view. There we go. So these are Madagascar's equivalent. They have that upturned snout, and these are a somewhat communal species. So you actually, I find when these guys are together, they seem a little bit more bold and a little bit more happy than when they're apart. So we've been keeping these, ladies together actually. They were supposed to be a breeding pair, but unfortunately, they're a pair, but not one that can breed. Now this water dish actually feels really clean. There's a little, like a speck of dirt floating in there, but if I rub my finger through there, there's a whole bunch of friction. I don't feel any slime buildup. That means there's no bacteria building up in there yet, which means that I can leave that for today. But yeah, this functions much the same as the bluey enclosure. We've got some plants, we've got some cleanup crew. They break down the waste and process it into plant food, and you just wind up with a really lovely little ecosystem that, if properly maintained, is low maintenance, and if improperly maintained, is high maintenance. Okay, I got me some paper towel. Now, when you're wiping down glass, you don't want to just give it a quick wipe. You see how there's a little, I don't know if you can on the camera, this isn't the best camera. But if you leave moist streaks of cleaner on the glass, you're going to wind up with a real streaky glass. So you want to make sure you're wiping it till it is dry. And you'll get that lovely streak-free effect that we all love. Now the plants in here are all very not humidity-loving plants necessarily. Snake plants are great for that. We've got this ponytail palm and this plant that I don't know the name of. I don't really need to add water to this environment. In fact, if I do, it gets a little too wet for the snakes. So we did deliberately choose plants that do just fine. Oh, my flashlight's on. Hold on. Beep. Plants that do just fine at lower humidity. That's all we got to do for those guys today. I'd take them out and show them to you, but they do not seem all that. Maybe let's take a look at this little one over here. Hi, darling. You want to come on out and say hi? Oh. There you are, beautiful. Oh, and back in the hide she goes. Yep, she's not into socializing today, so we'll kind of leave her be. But you got a pretty good glimpse. They're very beautiful. Okay. We'll close that up. Whoopsie. I kind of messed up my plant with my door over here. Didn't like that. Straighten that bad boy out. Okay. Now we're done that one. Moving down to Miss Ruby and Mr. Voorhees. This is a pair of blood pythons that we have together for breeding. Now, these guys, some days are a little cranky. Now, we've got you see this background back here? I absolutely love this background. This is Universal Rocks. This is the best background material you can get. It's super easy to use. It's super durable. But as all good and quick things are, they are expensive. This is a very expensive background that a customer actually donated to us, and I'm quite thankful for that. So we've put it to good use, and it looks great in there. Now the glass is pretty dirty, so we're going to give that a little bit of a clean down. Then let's take a look at some blood pythons. And the glass is clean. I wish I could apply this power of editing to real life, because if I could just edit out all the hard work parts, that'd be lovely. Let's get that and back up there. And now they've gone and messed up their hide a little bit. So let's get that straightened out. Oh, excuse me, bud. There we go. So here they are. On top we have Miss Ruby there. She is a matrix blood python. And below her we have Mr. Voorhees. He is a goldeneye. Both very fun morphs. You combo them together, you get a 007, which is a real pretty little snake, and that is what these guys are together for. But let's get in there. Let's start with Mr. Voorhees. We're going to need these guys out of the way so we can settle that hide back in place. Miss Ruby's giving me the look of I may or may not bite you, and I'm advocating for not. Oh, there you go, honey. Good girl. I'll grab you in a sec. Hey, Voorhees, you're going to supervise, okay, bud? So we lay a little bit of substrate down over our big old heating element there. It's not ready yet, bud. Where are you going? Oh, what a silly boy. He's good right now, but if he crawls back in and then I mess around, he might get a little cranky. So we'll get that hide settled back in place. That's what we're looking for. Oh, sorry, bud. Did I startle you? There we go. And he is raring to go. He wants in. There you go, buddy. Home sweet home. Oh, better go behind the hide and push it out and wreck things as soon as you possibly can. This is simply how the blood python do. Now, you might think they're called blood pythons on account of when they bite you, you bleed. And although that's accurate, that's not the reason for the season. It's because they're red. Also, blood is red before it dries. Him, of course, he's more yellow colored, but the wild type looks a lot more like Matrix here, where you have this nice red undercolor, and thus the name blood python was born. And now Ruby's head is in the hide. She's got herself convinced she's all the way hidden, and she's gonna very, very slowly continue to make progress, which is great, because it's not like I have other things to do or anything. Oh, come on, honey. Oh, I'm gonna move that chunky old bod. Thank you, baby girl. And then we'll just give that a real brief spray down so they've got some humidity. These guys do like a moderate amount of humidity. Not too much. They'll get scale rot if it's too wet, but with too little, they'll struggle to shed. There we go. Pull all my dirt out of the track so I can actually close the door. Lovely. And with that, the bloods are done. We got one more to go. We're almost done, guys. Mr. Albie, the most creative possible name for an albino anything. He's an albino carpet python. These guys like to hang out in the trees. You can see that in his behavior. He's very much clipped onto the branches. Now, if we look down here, we see Mr. Albie just left us a nice shed. He's a growing boy. Now, one mistake that some keepers will fall into when measuring their animals is they'll look at a shed like this, and they'll get it all stretched out like we're doing here, and they'll measure it, and they'll go, that is how long my animal is. And I get the idea. It's the snake's skin, so in theory it should be as long as the snake. The real kicker there is it's going to be longer than the snake. See how on Albie, if we get in real close, there we go. We can see the scales are overlapping with each other. Oh, hi, buddy. Good morning. Whereas if we look on this shed, the scales don't overlap. They are stretched all the way out. That's the skin in between the scales. So this shed is probably 30-some-odd% longer than the snake himself. So that's why I always second guess when customers come in and they go, oh, you wouldn't believe it, I have a 15-foot boa constrictor at home. It's like, no, you don't. You might have a good 8 to 10 footer. Oh, we see right on the end here, Albie hasn't quite all the way shed, so let's just bloop, bloop, blip, blip. Okay, I can't do that with one hand. I'm going to deal with that later when I have both. And so, he's got this arboreal enclosure because he is a arboreal snake. He likes to hang out in the trees, so he gets the height. Also means that when he defecates, it's a splatter zone. So he's dropped some little nuggets for us. Let's make sure we got those all. Did we get the nuggies? There's a little bit of urate that I'm just going to rough up so that when we mist it down, that's going to fall into the substrate so that the springtails can munch on that. Okay, buddy. Now we got to deal with that. This is another thing with our boreal snakes. They're hanging out above their water dishes, so they're going to make them real messy. And this water is actually pretty clean in terms of bacteria, but it's got quite a bit of peat moss on top of it. So we're going to change that out just so it looks purty. Clean water. There we go. Isn't that lovely, buddy? Look at him, isn't he a handsome fellow? Very photogenic. Except there's a log right there. Let's get a good thumbnail picture. Oh, there it is. So handsome indeed. One last step for that. We'll give it a good misting, post-shedding rainfall, you know. This mister is struggling. It's when it was a young mister, it had much better flow, but as it gets older, as we all know, that gets harder and harder to maintain. There we go, that'll do. And there we go, Mr. Albie is done. And with that, oh, I got back up a little more. And with that, we're done today's enclosures. I got many more to clean, but that's all we're going to film because it's faster when I have two hands. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in the next one. Maybe we'll clean something else.